So yeah, I'm just enjoying a cup of coffee in a handmade mug by my friend Liz Glenn. Yeah, I'm in my studio today, and I was thinking to give you a tour, YouTube community. This is sort of somehow becoming part of a series and a body of work that I've been working on called the Nomadic Studio Practice Experiment. And it's part of a body of work that is just that. It's a nomadic studio. I keep traveling and moving everything I own, i.e. everything in this particular Washington studio. It can even be, you know, as little as this like coffee making station to as big as everything in the room, which then becomes sort of ephemera and drawings and such that are made either on location as part of the performance action, or then they kind of fold into the sort of collection of things that then gets moved to the next space and the next space and the next space, which then in turn sort of threads all the work. So that's me on top of my truck, and I'm talking about my frustrations with losing my job. And I used my truck as, in this instance, as a studio because I was frustrated because I had to give up my studio because I lost my job, or it kind of finished. And then it was intense time because I was like moving around, and that was sort of the beginning stages of this like nomadism. A lot of the action with this work was to create a drawing or a sculpture in the time frame I had allowed. So now everything from that performance exists in this white banker's box. So a lot of the work was taking everything out of my truck, and I had music. There's always some sort of musical, and then I made this drawing. So I made this drawing by backing over it with my truck. Like I just put it on the floor, but and then I wore, this is the coat that I wore. My friend's a Burberry. My friend Lucy gave it to her sister, gave it to me, and then you could see I was wearing makeup all over my body, and I was naked, and then I was wearing a ski mask, which isn't in here, I don't think. I think I repurposed it. So after that piece, I went on to create a musical score titled Music for Hoarders. And that took place at Honor Fraser Gallery in 2010, in September of 2010. So then I moved everything that I could into Honor Fraser Gallery, and I made it a point as part of the performance to bring, you know, a truck full or at least one thing to the space. So every day. So I had a 12-day time period. The performance was, you know, collecting things from friends. Like I collected things from Peter and Rosanna, you know, things in their backyard or things that they just had around, or old records, or, you know, and it was amazing because it became a dialogue between my friends, and then also to the action of going, picking up, dropping off. And my mother is a hoarder and I grew up in Northern Virginia you know, born in '77, so I grew up in the '80s and '90s, and not having a language for this. I mean, there wasn't reality television, so, you know, we didn't have the A&E Hoarders television show. Sorry for copyright infringement there, but we didn't have those reality shows that, you know, talks about exposing those psychologies and going into other people's homes. So I didn't have a language for it, and so a lot of those feelings were suppressed, and they're not bad. I mean, look, I myself am an open, you know, I'm a hoarder in my own right, but I've managed to utilize that energy and create artwork as a result, and like a lot of that is hoarding the artwork as well. So a lot of those hoarder energies or intentions are part of that performance, and and a lot of that became a dialogue with me and the audience. The musical score was very, very direct, very simple. I invited a number of musician friends and artist friends that are, you know, in the experimental music scene, or, you know, outright very talented musicians. And I wrote a score for them, and the score was, anytime I interact with an object within the space, they were to emulate or create a sound of their choosing that was to invoke a feeling, any sort of feeling, hate, love, anger, fear, working on a number of different projects with regard to the nomadic studio. I would, continue on in that fashion of conducting a performance with the intent to create a work while in performance. Music playing a huge role in my work kind of gave my everyday objects life. It gave them intent. It gave them this sort of, it's not just stuff at some point, it means something. Like it gave life to repurposing, repurposing ideas, repurposing emotions, repurposing the ephemera, memories. I did a performance, a 3-month durational performance at the Whitney Museum of American Art called This Could Be Something If I Let It. This Could Be Something If I Let It became the mantra of the title, under the blanket title, The Nomadic Studio Practice Experiment. And it was just that. It was the first time I've ever, proposed a durational performance. I'd never done anything like that. But it occurred to me very quickly that I basically just created a job using the same sort of template that I used for Music for Hoarders, the same sort of visual score. It started with the title, This Could Be Something If I Let It, and then I just kept working in my apartment, and I kept sort of taking inventory, and then because it was, I had proposed to ship everything I own, all of my performance ephemera and everything I own, all the work I've ever made, my bed, it became much like very, very openly inspired by Alan Capro's The Blurring of Art and Life. Like, it became this sort of art meets life, art meets reality, and those lines blurred very literally on paper and openly, because I had to itemize everything. I had to inventory everything for the purposes of shipping, because there's a registrar that stands there, literally with a printout of everything in this room, and they check it off the list as soon as it comes off that art handling truck onto their loading dock. It was a beautiful mess. And I moved in and hit the pavement running, and I went every day to the museum, unpacked everything, and it was hard. It was hard because prior to that, all my stuff was being stored in Eric Kim's garage. And it had been like that for 2 years since I got kicked out in 2009. Well, not kicked out, but I couldn't afford to pay for my studio. So at the Whitney was literally the first time in like 2 years I had looked at everything. Like, I didn't even remember what I had. It had kind of become necessity, and sort of similar to how I have everything set up in this room. And it had became about the fundamentals. And so when in the context of the Whitney, I sort of then realized that it was a job. I basically was setting up a studio. Literally that, as I had said, and I sort of used that word, that language, experiment, as a seedbed for fruitful, germinating to happen. Anything could happen. I got overwhelmed and I needed help. And so I contacted a friend of a friend and invited a spiritual healer to come and heal me and cleanse the space that I was in. This woman and we connected, and I'd never met her before. It was the first time. And she just opened herself up to me and to my things and to my installation. And apparently this was something she had done. She was highly recommended from a friend, and it totally worked. Yeah, and so I just kept kind of coming. I even practiced. The installation period was my sort of rehearsal period where I came to work every day, said hi to all the security guards, came through the back door, and I would eat lunch, and I became friends with everyone in the restaurant there, and became friends with all the security. I still text with one of the security guards. She would always she would request to station herself by my studio, and I conducted workshops with varying different ages. It was really fun, like just interacting. The museum became my studio. The whole museum became my studio, and not in that possessive way. It was just like a place to hang out, and all of it became art. I became art, and I did that every day for 3 months. And I made artwork in the space that now the museum owns, and it was such an honor to be a part of that time, and it just made me want to give back, you know. And here I am in this space now, and then over here is my changing station. I'm still living in a suitcase after all this time, but it's okay. I'm the happiest I've ever been. So, and then over here, this is everything that I can't seem to figure out what to do with at the moment. I have all my books, and most of my records are over here, and then various different other tubs of things, musical instruments, ladders, and yeah. And then over here is Washington Boulevard. So, and my mail. Credit card bill, yay! Oh, I got Kristen's mail. The end.